time is referred to so often as a resource that a lot of people don't even have awareness of the fact that there's a way to view or have a relationship to time other than it being thought of as a resource. So that's I think a really great point. I'm curious what you see as the role capitalism has played in that, and if you see a way in which the benefits of capitalism can, continue without it hampering people's experience of time to such a degree.
Yeah, I mean, this big question of like the deep causes of all our time troubles, I think I'm fairly sort of agnostic about in the book. I point to certain strands that must play a role, but I don't think trying to figure out the specific causes is a very fruitful path. So on the one hand, all these attempts to master our time, to feel in control, to feel like we're capable of doing all the things that are thrown at us or that we can imagine we might want to do, which I argue is impossible, and that it's much more liberating to see that there will always be too much to do. In one sense, that desire to sort of get on top of that is just the sort of deep human desire not to have to die. And I think what happens is there's a technological aspect to this, which is we've probably always been like this, but then once clocks and other ways of measuring time come along, we get to use time in a new way as one of the ways to try to deny to try to cope with our mortality and deny the fact that we have to die by trying to sort of use time in a limitless way, in a way that is sort of a little bit akin to being immortal. If you can do everything in the time you have, that's a little bit like having an unlimited amount of time. So then, is capitalism a consequence of that, or a cause of that? It clearly just is a system that has huge affinities with, and is helped along by this way of thinking about time, because number one, it's a sort of machine for extracting financial value from anything it encounters, and the commodification of time is a way to, it's a whole new resource when you can buy and sell time in that way, and find ways to extract greater value out of the same portion of time. And then, of course, slightly more cynically, capitalism and consumer capitalism especially has this interest in, quote, interest, in keeping us always on this treadmill of trying to get in control of life, trying to break through our most basic limitations, holding out the promise that the next purchase or the next promotion will finally bring this kind of sense of peace of mind through the control of our time and our lives. So there's that as well. I mean, I'm quite hopeful in one sense, and sort of drawing on ideas that I know Cal Newport, for example, has written quite eloquently about, that in some ways, I'm not a sort of, doctrinaire Marxist about the role of capitalism. And in some ways, the kinds of work that are coming to the fore in this era of capitalism, just in general, knowledge work and work involving the manipulation of ideas and creativity and all the rest of it, that seems to go along more with a sort of a sense of deep time, and the importance of being able to connect to this other way of thinking about time, and not being caught in this kind of impatient, totally sort of resource maximizing mindset. Like you create better things in a world where there's a lot of market value to being able to like tell stories well, or inspire people, or think original thoughts in an academic field, something like that. Like, you're going to do that better if you are not completely locked in that sort of assembly line way of thinking about time. So maybe that suggests that capitalism can thrive, and this sort of other way of relating to time can thrive, because obviously, as you know, right? I mean, flow states are an interesting example of something that is deeply meaningful to experience, and in many lines of work is going to pay off if you can get into them more frequently. So it's not like these two things necessarily have to be opposed to each other.